Cool. So, John, I know you don't want to talk about this because you're going to be a bit jealous, but I've had my PS5 for 2 weeks now.
All right. Well, I do want to hear about it, even though I am going to be a little bit annoyed. Can I explain to you why I'm going to be a little annoyed?
Yeah, go on, do it.
All right. So Walmart got more PS5s, and I feel a little better about this story after having tweeted about it and finding out that I'm not alone. But they said there was going to be a drop at I think it was 5 in the afternoon one day, and I got on the Walmart site and I was clicking away furiously. I've got good skills because of iPhone releases in the past, and I got a PS5 in the cart. I went all the way through the checkout process. I had a delivery date on the screen telling me, "Oh, it'll be here by the weekend." I clicked, confirm purchase, and it wiped out my cart.
Oh no!
And apparently that's what they were doing to a lot of people. It basically lets you get through the whole process, and then it was the part that was hard. The roll of the dice was not at the front end getting in your cart; it was at the back end charging your credit card, and it didn't work. The site at that point was behaving very strangely, as you can imagine. It was the PS5 kept kind of. It stayed in my cart, so I tried again, and then it failed, and then it stayed in my cart, and then it was sold out. Then I tried again, it was back. It was one of those things where the site was all out of sorts. But at the end of the day, it eventually just completely disappeared from the cart, and I did not get one. So I do not have a PS5 coming. There have not been very many additional sales of them, other than if you're willing, over Black Friday to go to certain stores physically. You could maybe get one if you waited in a long, long line in the cold for many, many hours. But I didn't do that. So I think it's going to be many months before I have a PS5.
Yeah, I've been seeing sort of some of this with Walmart and a few other retailers in the US because on the PS5 subreddit, sort of people are posting when they come in stock and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And, I don't think your experience with Walmart is unique either to you or to Walmart. I think
right.
A lot of these places, I don't think any of them. I think Apple are the only company that seem to be able to handle this kind of traffic. But none of these stores, the Walmarts, even the GameStop and places like that, they're just not set up to take pre-orders or something when you've got potentially millions of people who want the exact same thing.
Yeah, at the exact same moment, right? And I wonder why they don't do a lottery system. I suppose there are ways to game that for the bots and the resellers. I mean, because that's part of the problem too, is that you're competing against bots for a lot of these PS5s.
Definitely.
Right? And you can't really compete with that. I mean, it's just a roll of the dice at best. And so those will end up. And I'm not willing to go buy a PS5 for $1,000 or whatever they're selling them for. So I'll wait. I'll try to be patient. I've got some other games that I've been playing that we can talk about, but before we do that, I do want to hear about the PS5 because I've heard a little bit from Mike Hurley about his. Federico, I don't believe, has gotten his yet. So I don't know that many people with them, and I haven't talked to anybody in depth about it. So why don't you tell me what it's been like?
Yeah, I mean, so firstly, obviously, the thing that everyone was talking about, including us, was how big this thing was.
Yeah.
And it is huge. I had to move a couple of consoles to fit it, on the TV unit.
Are you doing it sideways or vertically?
Yeah, sideways. I don't have the space.
Yeah.
Because the TV units I've got are the exact size of the TV.
Okay.
So there isn't any space either side.
Right.
What I hadn't considered is, and you look at the marketing shots and, you can kind of love it or hate it, but I can look at it and objectively go, yeah, it's quite nice to look at in the marketing shots. Mm-hmm. Not in my house.
Oh, really?
This is an ugly thing. I hate looking at it. I don't even like looking at it. It is so ugly.
Yeah, I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried about that if we ever get one here and want to put it in our living room, in the main part of the house. I'm not so sure that will fly with the rest of my family.
Yeah, there's definitely, a friend of mine did say to me when I think I tweeted this, and he said that the digital edition certainly looks a bit better because it doesn't have the additional bulk of the of the disk drive, and it definitely looks better vertical, because I've seen some pictures of people's, in their house when they've got it vertical, and actually that looks okay. But to be honest, like, once this thing is actually in your house, you look at it and go, God, it's a monster, and it's just not that nice to look at.
Right, and since it's not symmetrical, it looks like it's kind of shoved in there when it's on its side, I bet.
Right, exactly.
Looks a little out of place, or lopsided or whatever.
Yeah, and you've got the lights around the, when it's on, it's got
Right.
the lights around sort of the trim, and it's kind of like my eye is drawn to it. Like, I'm very tempted, legitimately, to put something over in front of it, because it's actually quite distracting, because it's just this huge spaceship of a thing.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, I don't know. We'll have to see where it ends up in my house, but I don't think I have to worry about it for a while anyway. How I want to know, how is it with the quick startups and all that kind of stuff? Does it make a difference at all in kind of your day-to-day use?
Yeah, it beats my TV for turning on. So my TV is not the best. I don't have a particularly good. It's a smart TV, quote unquote, but I don't use any of the smart, so it takes a while to boot up.
Sure.
And the PS5 beats the TV now. So if I turn them on at the same time, by the time the TV is turned on, I'm back in whatever game I was playing.
Oh,
before.
wow.
And like, one of the other things I noticed, because it's got this new activities sort of card thing that it shows you, so you can jump into like a specific level.
Oh, right.
Or like
I
a
saw
speed
that.
run.
Yeah.
And like, I was playing Spider-Man, and then somebody was beating my time in Astro's Playroom, and it popped up. So I clicked it, and it must have been 3 seconds, and I was back doing that speed run.
Wow.
Like, it was ready to go. Most of my games are on disc, generally, and I think I'm still going to stick with that. But the ones that are digital, which is like Astro's Playroom, Spider-Man Remastered, like, jump in between those two, although there's no specific feature for quick resume or anything like that, it is obscenely fast. Like, I don't think I'd realised how much time I was wasting on games, when there's loading screens or restarting a level, that kind of thing. Because I'll finish playing on the PS5 and I'm like, oh, I haven't looked at Twitter for 3 hours, because previously, when there was a loading screen, I'd just pick up my phone and look through Twitter or check email or whatever.
Right.
But I don't have a chance to do that now.
That's nice. I'll really enjoy that, I think, because I find it all those loading screens very frustrating on consoles.
Yeah, definitely. There is some remnants of it in Sackboy, because this is Sackboy is out for the PS5 and PS4.
Okay.
So although it loads really quickly, you restart a level or you finish and stuff like that, you still get a loading screen, which isn't there for very long, but you're still getting a delay, which I think is unnecessary. Like, I'm sure the loading screen doesn't need to be there, because it's able to jump into levels and stuff really quickly.
Yeah, but maybe it's just sharing the same code with the PS4 version or something.
Right, that would be my assumption.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of Sackboy, it is really fun.
Is it?
That's a really, really fun game. Yeah, I finished Miles Morales and Astro's Playroom, and pretty much since then I've just been playing Sackboy for the last week and a half.
Wow. Yeah. So you got this. You've had it for how long? You've had it almost since the time we last recorded, right?
Yeah, it would be 2 weeks tomorrow. I think I've had it.
Okay. Wow. You're doing a good job there, getting through those games.
Oh yeah, I mean, Miles Morales and Astro's Playroom, because I think I mentioned this, but I had a few days off when it arrived, so I had the weekend plus the Friday and the Monday, so I had 4 days, pretty much 4 days solid of just playing these games.
Oh wow!
Astro's Playroom, I mean, it's a small game. I mean,
yeah.
you can kind of, I think maybe I did like 3 or 4 hours for sort of quote unquote finishing, and then I've been back in for a couple of hours doing the speed run levels at the end. And so.
I was going
that one's relatively easy to finish, I guess.
Right, and that comes with it, and it's mainly designed to show off the various features of the console, right?
Right, exactly. You get the rumble, you get the trigger resistance, and everything is exaggerated in Astro's Playroom. Spider-Man and Sackboy and stuff, they have resistance and they have the haptic feedback. Astro's Playroom feels like you're holding, one of those toys. It's like a ball with big bobbles on it and it like rattles around. I think it's like a kid's toy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like one of those. You finish playing Astros and you're like, oh my god, like my hands are like shaking because they've really like they've I think this is on purpose, but they've deliberately pushed everything to the extreme. You get really hard resistance when you're grabbing something. The vibrations and the haptics are quite aggressive in Astros Play. It's good, it's fun, it's not a bad thing. But then when I went over to Spider-Man, I was like, oh, is this even working? But it is working. It's doing what it's supposed to do. But compared to Astros, it's like it's two different things. Because obviously Astros kind of serves as a demo for the controller more than anything else.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and so it's a lot more subtle in your typical games. But tell me a little bit more about the controller, because I mean, for every reviewer that I've seen has said that it's really the game changer for this device.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Like I say, Astros is an extreme version of it, but I think this is what everyone brings up, but like if you're walking on the sand or you're swimming through the water, that kind of thing, you get different feelings through the controller. So to say it feels like sand is weird, because obviously I'm not walking on it, but you are getting a level of interaction with what you're doing in the game that you would just, there is no other controller that's ever done this. I remember getting the Rumble Pack for the M64 and thinking, wow, this is amazing. That's what the DualSense feels like, but 10 times better than that, because it's got it's got the haptics, it's got the touchpad even, which I'm not convinced anyone's going to use. It's used in Astro's Playroom, but nowhere else is going to use it. But the resistive triggers is really nice, and I think that's going to be really interesting when we, in a couple of years, when developers have had more time. And keep in mind, the only game I'm playing here that is only on the PS5 is Astro's Playroom. Everything else is cross-platform. So it has this stuff, but it's not. It doesn't feel like it's using everything to the full potential.
It's not necessarily designed around it. It's just designed to be added to it for that particular platform.
Right, exactly. And I can't remember if, like, Ratchet and Clank, the new one, that is PS5 exclusive. So I'm interested to see, what something like that, which is a full game release, it's not a demo, like Astro's is, like how it's going to use the controller, and just the load times, which obviously is one of the big things they're selling with Ratchet and Clank. Right. But I'd be interested to see what that's going to be like.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Because I remember watching the demos, the footage of Ratchet and Clank, and they're moving from level to level basically through portals, and it's almost seamless to go from one to the other, if I remember right.
Right, exactly. So I mean, they still haven't announced a release date, but I'm sure that's coming. They actually just tweeted before we started recording some billboards that they'd put up in Scotland somewhere.
Oh.
Which makes me think you wouldn't put billboards up if you weren't intending on at least announcing a release date.
Right. I bet those will start showing up in other places too. Interesting. How is Miles Morales, and how does it compare to the original Spider-Man game?
Yeah, in all honesty, like it's much of the same. You've got a different move set because Miles Morales is a different character, and he has different powers and stuff like that. But for the most part, and because it's a shorter game, it's sort of like it's about half the length of the original one. It actually feels a lot tighter. It almost feels a bit nicer, because it's just like, right, it's limited in its scope, but everything that it does is kind of feels a bit more polished than the first game.
Yeah, I can imagine, because they had more time to kind of get everything right.
Right, exactly. But then in the remastered version of the original game, they've moved over all the nice stuff that you get. So, upgraded textures and ray tracing, or you can do the 60 frame per second mode. Photo mode is upgraded. And all the suits they've added now, like the remastered version now has like 30 or 40 different Spider-Man suits.
Wow.
Because they sort of keep adding them. Like they did a couple for the remaster, and they've done like 5 or 10 in the DLC and stuff like that. So there's a lot of game there for the, whatever I paid, £18 or something for the, just the remaster part of it.
Right. Interesting. So, what are you looking forward to most next? I mean, I guess Ratchet and Clank, maybe, or so you have something your eye on something else.
Yeah, I mean, Ratchet and Clank is pretty much it right now. Because there's a few other games that were announced at the announcement event. There's what's it called, Kena Bridge of Spirits. That looks pretty nice, but that's been delayed. Deathloop is another one.
Oh, right.
That looks really nice, but again, that's been delayed.
Right, I was going to say, I thought it had been.
But of course, because it plays PS4 games, I'm not limited to, I've bought a console on launch and there's 5 games.
Sure.
I've still got PS4 games to play. Like, I just picked up Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I picked that up on Black Friday.
Oh, okay.
Although apparently that breaks. It crashes on PS5, so I've got to wait for an update now.
Oh, no. That's no good. I hadn't heard that. It's a good game. Does it upscale these older games?
No. So unlike on the Xbox,
right,
the new one, the Series X, and I think the S as well, it does a whole bunch of stuff to upscale and potentially do HDR and things like that.
Right.
On the PS5, these games... So if it's a PS4 game, they can do an update to allow like a unlimited frame rate, essentially, which essentially means it can get up to 60 frames per second on the PS5.
Yeah, because some of the games lock the frame rate in order to make sure that it performs a certain way, right?
Right, exactly. But, there's some games that will run at 60. I think God of War is one of them that was already had this unlocked frame rate. So they can do updates like that. But if they want to do updates that take advantage of anything else on the PS5, it has to be... so, for example, the DualSense features. If a game wants to take advantage of the DualSense, they have to update and create a PS5 version, essentially. So they can't... A PS4 game can't support the DualSense. It has to be a brand new listing, I guess, in the store. Obviously, they can offer free upgrades and stuff like that. But having the whole PS4 catalog, and especially with the PlayStation Plus collection, which gives you like 20 games or something, I think I'm going to have plenty to play before Ratchet and Clank comes out.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Oh, that's great. I mean, that's awesome that you were able to get one. I mean, I forget how did you just end up getting online and doing it when one of the early pre-order days?
Yeah, it was. So I saw all the mess that happened in the US with the retailers, like Walmart and places like that. Just went, we'll just do pre-orders.
Yeah,
now.
That was terrible. That's how my oldest son actually got one, and he got it because he just happened to be on Twitter when he saw that it was either Best Buy or Walmart did their early thing.
Right. Yeah. So I saw all of this sort of happen after the event, and I think about an hour later, I just searched Twitter for PS5 UK, and I saw somebody tweet, and they said Amazon UK orders are going up at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I thought, well, it was literally just a random guy on Twitter. It wasn't like, wasn't a journalist, it wasn't a games person. It was just some random guy, as best I could tell. But I figured, do you know what? I'll give it a go. And, sure enough, they showed up at 8 o'clock, and I just hit the buy now button, the one click order.
Right.
I had no idea where they were delivering it to. I don't know what card it charged it to. I just did it.
Right.
But like you say, it's kind of just luck. It's luck that I saw that guy's tweet, and luck that I was able to get one.
Right. Yeah, this all came up, of course, when I was super busy, and so I didn't have a lot of time to deal with the PS5 pre-orders. And so now I'm paying the price, I guess. I did, though, get myself a MacBook Air about 10 days ago. Yeah, one of the new M1 based ones. And I love this computer. This is by far my favorite Mac. It's got 16 gigabytes of unified memory and a big fast SSD. And boy, all the apps just run so smoothly and fast on this thing. It's a pretty impressive machine, especially now that it's got like an improved keyboard. The keyboard's not the junky keyboard anymore. My last laptop was a 2016 MacBook Pro 13-inch, which I think was basically at the high point of problems with MacBooks because it had the lousy keyboard, which had intermittent issues, and the battery is already like only at 75% of its capacity, so it doesn't really hold a charge very well. This MacBook Air is amazing. When I set it up from scratch, fresh, and when it was downloading a bunch of apps all at once, plus importing my photos library, downloading my email and my messages and doing all those things that happen when iCloud is syncing for the first time, it barely got warm, and the battery just lasts and lasts and lasts. It's a lot more like using an iPad in that sense, in that, whenever I use a portable Mac, I always felt like if I could, I should be plugged into power in some way, or I shouldn't work for more than a few hours without doing that because I wasn't going to have a lot of battery left. Now I just kind of can use my Mac laptop throughout the day on and off, and I've still got charge, and it's still fine when I get up in the morning. It's still got enough that I can use it some more, and it charges very quickly, and it's really a remarkable little machine.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember if somebody tweeted this or maybe it was in a Slack, but if this is what the bottom end cheap laptops are like in terms of speed and battery,
right?
What is the equivalent of my computer, which is the top end 16-inch?
Right.
What's the replacement for this going to look like? Because the laptop you've bought is as fast as mine. No, obviously I have some different advantages, like a bigger screen,
more
and
ports, and that kind of thing.
Right, but in terms of pure computing power, it's like, if this is what the cheap ones do, I can't even begin to imagine what the replacement for mine is going to look like in a year, in 2 years, or potentially 3 or 4 when I replace mine. Yeah. It's just going to be wild.
Yeah, and it's really disconcerting at first that it has no fan. It makes absolutely no noise, and I'm just not used to that with Macs. Like I love my 2018 Mac Mini, and it's pretty beefy. I got the highest end I could get at the time, but the fans spin up at the drop of a hat. It happens a lot, and it's noisy. And the 2016 MacBook Pro was like that too. But this thing makes no noise. The battery lasts forever, and it's incredibly fast. I mean, it's totally fine for everything that I do. And I know, I haven't spent, what I haven't done with it yet is heavy lifting with things like running audio filters and things for podcast editing or anything on it yet. But I plan to do that.
Right.
I plan to do that. And I know from talking to Mike Hurley that he said that it actually is slower for him exporting audio out of Logic, but things like Adobe Audition, when he's doing like loudness matching, are faster than his iMac Pro, and he's using an Air like I am. And I can imagine a situation now where when I go to edit podcasts each week, because those files live in Dropbox, I'll just open my laptop and do that pre-processing right there. And I may still edit on my Mac Mini because I've got a big 27-inch display attached to it. But that kind of background task, there's no reason why that can't be done on the Air while I'm having lunch, and it's not going to impact the battery hardly at all. I mean, it's a really amazing machine. And if I ever travel again, I can imagine it being really good for that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, what I hear everything, what you're saying, and I've listened to other podcasts and stuff like that, and I'm like, what's nice about this is, we're the kind of, we buy MacBooks and stuff like that, and you'll get people that say to you, oh, why do you buy MacBooks over, a Windows laptop, a Dell machine, or whoever makes decent, Windows laptops or whatever. And, until this, we could kind of give vague reasons, because I feel like 10 years ago, yeah, but recently it's been a bit weird. But now it's like, no, this is why again, because It's like, nothing else is going to compete with this for the next, 6 months to a year at least, until, somebody can come out with something better. And even that, it may not be possible right now.
Right. And, a lot of my day-to-day computing isn't that kind of heavy lifting. A lot of it is, I tend to have a lot of apps open at one time. I'm moving around from one to the other often, and I have a lot of tabs for research and things like that. And on a laptop before, the battery would drain very quickly just because there were so many apps, even if they weren't being actively used, open, or especially with things like Safari with a lot of tabs. that tended to start draining the battery. But that's really not been an issue. And I think it really changes the nature of a laptop when you don't have to worry about the battery. I mean, you have that feeling of additional freedom where I can say, well, all right, I've got 50% battery, but I'm going to go sit on the couch and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to work for 3 or 4 hours straight, even though I only have 50% battery. And it's totally fine because I'll still have, 20% when I'm done. And then I can plug it in and it'll be almost up to full after an hour. It charges fast and it drains slowly, and it makes a really big difference. And, on top of that, of just being fast, you get used to the speed and you get used to the silence very quickly. But the battery life is still kind of blowing me away.
Yeah, I mean, because I can't, I've had laptops for, Mac laptops probably 8 or 10 years. And then, before that, I had a few Windows laptops. And the battery's never, no battery I've ever had, probably until this 16-inch, because actually this is relatively good because it's a large laptop.
Right.
But, none of them have ever really been good enough for me to feel like I can go do something for a couple of hours, even, without thinking, it's 80% now. Is that going to be enough to do 2 hours of, whatever
Right.
I'm doing? And don't tell anyone, but I'm recording on battery right now. But I know we're only going to be here for an hour or whatever we're here for. But
Right.
if we were going to do a longer thing, if it was going to be like an hour-long podcast and, we chat before, chat after for a long time, there's no way I could do that. I would have to plug it in. But
Right.
to not have to worry about battery, which has been this thing for years. Do you remember the little netbooks you could buy? It came with a 3-cell battery, but you could buy additional 6-cell batteries, and it would stick this bulbous
Right.
thing out the hinge because people were so desperate for battery life.
Right. No, it's true. And, I did things like I've been still kind of slowly setting it up, and I've been doing a variety of different things over the last week and a half, both on all of the various computers lying around this house. And on Thanksgiving, we did a Zoom call with family it was a pretty long Zoom call. I don't remember, maybe an hour. And, that's the kind of thing that does sometimes tend to drain your battery pretty quickly. It was totally fine. It barely impacted the battery. And so it's just, it does provide that extra level of freedom where you don't really worry about the length your battery is going to last like you used to. Now, that's best when you're doing things like traveling and you think you're going to be somewhere without a plug for a long time. But even at home, I found it's kind of liberating just because, I don't have, if I open up my laptop and I realize, oh yeah, I never charged this up and I'm under 50%, I still know I can sit on the couch and work for a few hours without having to plug in. It's not like, well, I can't use this unless I sit at a table next to an outlet, or I can't use this unless I charge it up for an hour. I just start using it and it's fine unless I was down, in the real bottom of the range there. So that's been really nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to get my hands on one of these. I mean, unfortunately, what a weird thing to say. I've only just bought a laptop I think I got this 6 months ago, and we bought Jess's MacBook Pro probably only last year. And keep in mind, the last laptop she had was a MacBook Air, and she had it for 7 years.
Oh, wow!
So I don't think we'll be replacing that anytime soon.
Yeah, the 16-inch MacBook Pro is really nice. I know. I mean, one of my sons has that, and it's fantastic. But it's just amazing what these little computers can do now. The speed at this low end of the spectrum, like you said, and the fact that this Air is just, it's the smallest laptop that they make, and it's got all day battery life. I mean, imagine what a 16-inch could do.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a really exciting couple of years for computers, in general from Apple, but specifically the laptops is what.
Yeah,
I'm really
and even the MacBook Pro that has a fan, it's very hard to get that fan going, from what I understand. I mean, I know a few people who have them, and it's incredibly fast. That the difference. It's interesting to me that all these computers, Apple released the Air, the MacBook Pro 13-inch, and the Mac Mini. they all have the identical chip in them. And what distinguishes them is, well, obviously one's a desktop and two are laptops, but the Pro does have a fan, and that's so that it can run at a faster speed for longer without getting too hot. And that makes a difference, but I think for the vast majority of people, it won't make a difference. I think, like for me, it just didn't. I don't need sustained high computing power for long periods of time. So an Air is, to me, probably just as powerful. I don't know that I would notice a difference using the MacBook Pro if over the MacBook Air, because I just don't do the kind of stuff that you need to do that. But if you're like building and compiling big development projects, for instance, that would make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the first time in quite a few years that I've even considered the MacBook Air, as an option, because, it's always been, for the most part, it's always been a good computer, except when they sort of left it to get old for a while. But right. It's always been decent. The form factor is good. It's really small. It's portable. It does, what a lot of people need to do: web browsing, email, documents, that kind of thing. But I could totally see myself getting one of these now. Exactly what you're saying. It's like, I do some stuff that's CPU intensive, but it's not, like you say, I'm not exporting 8K video
right
all day long.
Right. And on top of that, it's not my primary computer. I still have a pretty beefy Mac Mini that sits on my desk. So I don't need it to be the workhorse necessarily. I just need it to be good at what it's really good at, which is being a portable computer with a long-lasting battery.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, I think it's been a good couple of weeks for both of us. I think we've both got shiny new toys.
We do, and thank goodness for the Air, or else I would be even more jealous of your PS5.
Oh, absolutely. It's it's like I say, it's a lot of fun, but I can't stand to look at it. But
well, hopefully it grows on you over the holiday season.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be fine. I'll probably still be playing Sackboy in a couple of weeks.
Okay, good.
Trying to I keep going through the levels, and I'll because you get you get a little badge thing for if you don't die, or you get a certain. I'm like, I keep going back to all the levels because I can't bear to leave them unfinished.
Good. Well, that's good to hear. I'm looking forward to trying one out myself eventually.
Cool. Right. Well, we will. I guess we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Don't know what we'll talk about because neither of us have got anything new coming. But I'm sure we'll find something.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All right. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Speak to you later.
Yep, bye.